Okay, good evening. How are you this evening? My name is Jim Krueger. I am the teacher who's going to be teaching your child college prep economics. Just a little bit about myself. Put a few things on the board here for you. This is my 43rd year teaching seniors in high school. So I think I have a pretty good idea on what to expect from your son or daughter. I just sort of outlined some broad ideas here, and then I was going to get in very briefly to tell you a little bit about the specifics of what we're going to cover. What I've been trying to harp to your kids is my job. I take my job serious. This is called college preparatory economics. My job is to prepare your son or daughter for what's coming in the next 3, 4, 5 years, and that's college. And they're going to have to be able to read, write, articulate, and they have to focus in order to do that. They have to come to school prepared to listen. They're expected to take notes, have something to write with, something to write on, ask as many questions as they can. The dream would be that I have a syllabus that talks about everything we're going to cover as we go along. If we're going to cover a section on monetary policy, before they come to class, they're expected to read that section in the book that talks about monetary policy. The combination of them having read it and then them coming into class and sitting down and listening as we discuss it, hopefully they're sitting there saying as they're listening to us discuss it, that's pretty similar to what I thought when I read it last night. The combination of having read it and then listening to us talk about it in class hopefully will make the concept a lot clearer. The big thing, the number one destroyer of any hope of your kid learning economics or any class is the telephone that they have in their hand, as you know. I don't mind telephones, they're wonderful. I use them every day too. But there's a time and a place. I keep telling your kids, you can't be paying attention to what we're talking about and still be on the phone talking to your friends. I don't take phones away from people, but I ask them to put them away. I'm not going to keep asking your son or daughter to put them away. I keep trying to convince them, your kids, that it's to their advantage to pay attention. It's not that economics is new, it's just that it's different. It's like their own vocabulary they have and it's their own way of thinking. So, students have to pay attention. Grading policy, I give homework on the syllabus. If you go online, you'll see under Canvas, it has a syllabus that tells you everything we're going to cover. Then it has a breakdown of all the homework assignments that we've covered. Those are real simple to do. They're just objectives and key terms from each of the different sections. Very simple. There's the most points of all are for homework. Then I give tests, but I always review for tests. I give them a sheet that they fill out with the main points that were talked about in the chapter or chapters that we're going to be tested on. They turn that in for credit, but plus they get to use that on the test, and that has all the answers to the test, if you will. So it's to their advantage, so that's a help. They also do these little current event articles, which are pretty simple. They do 5 of them, and it's just a little breakdown, a synopsis of an article that they read that in some manner, shape, or form has to do with money, economy, the government spending. I'm trying to get them to read an article that they normally wouldn't read and to practice writing a little bit. Everybody's been able to do this. We add up all the points for all of this, and it's the typical point system. 90 to 80 is an A, and 80 to 90 will be etc. We're going to be covering both micro and macroeconomic concepts. We start off with this notion of scarcity. It's the foundation on which we study economics, as you know. If everybody could get everything they needed or wanted as much as they needed or wanted any time they needed or wanted, then we would all be living in the Garden of Eden. We wouldn't have a problem. But as we know, we can't get everything we need or want. And that's where economics comes in. We have to make choices. Economics is nothing more than a science that attempts to teach us how to use our scarce resources in the most efficient way to satisfy the greatest number of needs. And of course, the answer to how to do that is a source of contention. Historically, some people have believed a socialist model, a socialist economic model is the best way to satisfy people's wants and needs. We've had communist models in the past. We, of course, believe in a free market system as the best way to give people, reward them with the greatest needs and wants fulfilled. Then we study, of course, supply and demand, the famous laws of supply and demand. We also get into what is called elastic demand and elastic supply, and determine what causes changes in demand and supply, etc. We could talk about labor in America, historically, the importance of labor. You know, I'm in a union, the Chafee Joint Teachers Union. Unions today are predominantly white collar. They're for government people, for schools, etc. The old blue collar unions of factories are falling by the wayside. But I keep telling the kids, you know, I don't appreciate how much people went through to get to the point where I get to enjoy the benefits of being in union. Great pay, great benefits, great protections. You know, we forget that for 90% of the world's history, workers didn't have these protections. And what people had to fight, how they had to fight like crazy to get what we have today, which we just take for granted. I try to bring up the historical fight for labor and for the rights of the worker. Then we talk about issues today in labor, especially issues concerning women and pay issues. We spend a lot of time on monetary policy. That's the Federal Reserve. I try to explain to the kids that, and fiscal policy. You know, fiscal policy is the President and Congress trying to keep the economy running smoothly through use of the budget. Money coming in the door, money going out the door. Monetary policy is the policy of the Fed to try and keep the economy going through the tools of monetary policy. The President and Congress cannot control anything that the Federal Reserve Board does. So we spend a lot of time there. We're going to talk about Keynesian theory, which is demand side theory, which is favored by all Republicans from Franklin Roosevelt to today. Supply side theory, which began during the Reagan years and continues to be the main theory by most Republicans. We're going to talk about trade in America. We're going to explain the difference between a comparative advantage and an absolute advantage. We're going to talk about how business is established. We can establish proprietorships, partnerships, corporations. We're going to talk about measuring how well the economy is doing by introducing into the concepts of gross domestic product, gross national product. We're going to look at the stock market, be able to read the stock page, explain to them what price earnings ratios is, and the main concepts in the stock market. We're going to look at how federal, state, and local governments bring in money. You know, how does the federal government tax? What are the main areas of revenue for them? How does the state bring in money? How does local governments, counties and cities? Then how do they spend it? Okay? And there's more, but I'm running out of time here. The most important thing for your kids is to ask questions. They have to read the stuff. One thing that your kids do not want to do is open the book while they're at home and read. They want me to do all their work for them, and that's not going to work. Because in the next number of years, if they don't know how to budget their time to, you know, take the time to read the information and focus and study it, it's going to be pretty hard the next few years. Professors are not going to do all their work for them. And that's the problem we're having now. Kids don't want to do the work. They want me to stand up and tell them everything that they had a chance to read in the book. So that's my dream, is that you stay on top of your kids, make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. You have access to Canvas. You can see if they're turning in what they're supposed to turn in. You can see what they got on tests and homework. So the combination of them knowing you're watching them and me staying on top of their progress, hopefully that will result in two wonderful things. Your kids having a tremendous experience learning econ and learning a whole bunch of economic concepts that they can keep the rest of their life. So I appreciate you coming tonight. I hope I didn't bore you to tears. I think your son and daughter, if you ask anybody that's ever been in any of my classes, I hope the one thing they'll tell you when they get done is, I learned something in this class. And I hope that's what your kids will say too. So thank you and good night.